It's always so refreshing to come in and sit next to your peers and hear about how they're starting up their own company or going and interning in Rwanda or wherever it may be. It's so incredible to then share and learn from those experiences despite them not being firsthand. And that's another great part of what it means to be on this fellowship.
While I was a part of the Social Entrepreneurship Fellows, I was able to do a really cool project about the African diaspora. That's what I'm truly passionate about, and that's also my major. Shout out to IGS Africa. But I was very passionate about the African experience and the African American experience specifically, and then how travel kind of intersects with identity. So I endeavored to do a project of where I discover what Blackness is in different cultural contexts. So I did a project in the African context, one in the European context, and then finally in the Asian context. And in each of those places, I found myself experiencing my Blackness in new ways, and then also understanding how this Blackness is interpreted in these other cultural contexts. And I believe that once you have experienced another culture and really tried to put yourself in a different context, get uncomfortable and get comfortable with being uncomfortable, you become a better listener and a better learner. It's one thing to say, I know about this issue in another country, and it's another thing to go and live it.
I think it's really about humility. I believe one of my biggest takeaways from this has been the importance of humility and understanding that a lot of problems are so much bigger than we probably think they are, and to learn to listen and understand and then try and aid in developing solutions. In Middlebury, I learned to develop my thinking and my understanding of problems, whereas in DPMI, I was able to develop the skills that would help me actualize the impacts that I'm trying to create in my head. Last summer, I went to Yunnan province in China, and I did a film project about the implication environmental protection is having on local fishermen, because it was a community where it surrounded a big lake where fishing was banned because of environmental issues, and it was negatively affecting a lot of people. And so over there I gained a greater appreciation of the complexities of environmental protection and what are some of the implications it has on the society.
I think the biggest lesson that I've learned by being part of this program has been how complicated, diverse, and intricate the world of social entrepreneurship can be. Starting from when I was an intern for a small social enterprise in Ghana that did cocoa farming and empowered the rural community, to more recently traveling with Professor Horning to Rwanda, where I visited African Leadership University and ziplined to social enterprises in Rwanda, to running my own project in Kenya, where I run a youth empowerment program for people with albinism. The experience of visiting all these social enterprises has been very rewarding to me because it has taught me how I can run my own and how I can learn from their challenges to improve on my own projects. For example, through my project in Kenya, as I was saying earlier, where I ran these workshops that were around personal and professional development, where people really got the chance to learn more about themselves, learn more about their skills, their capabilities, and use them to achieve their greater objectives in their own communities, such as becoming leaders at their own universities or in their own churches, and just spreading more positive awareness about themselves and about people with albinism in general.
There's a lot of change that is happening right now in my region, and so a lot of the experiences I've had to do with like going back to rural Latin America in particular. I visited different communities and groups of young people who are basically working with their own resources and their own tools to create like a social impact at the community, and for me it was super inspiring to see how people do so much with so little. I think recognizing the potential of creativity to fulfill for lack of resources was definitely a main takeaway.
I realized that there wasn't one specific issue that I felt very connected to, because it was very difficult for me, as somebody who never grew up particularly attached to one specific issue, it was hard for me to justify why I would pick one thing over the other. So that was my big problem, not really knowing how I wanted to pursue this. And I found that entrepreneurship wasn't necessarily the method that I wanted to use. I found that I didn't think that, especially through my experience at Midcore, I didn't feel like I had a particular inclination to be good at being entrepreneurial, I guess. The thing that I was best prepared to do, I think, was empower others to do those kinds of things. I found that through the field of education, especially, that I'd be able to make that most kind of impact. What I liked about that, too, was that it was something I could engage with people with, make relationships and connections, too. So giving people an awareness of social problems and also the confidence to take them on. I think if I can do that to, I don't know, thousands of people, then it's a lot more impactful than me going off and trying to start my invention, in my opinion. So
in my time on the fellowship, I've done a number of different things, but my two predominant activities were through internships. The first one that I did was in London, where I was working with a startup accelerator called Mass Challenge. My second internship was in Barcelona in Spain, and I was working for an educational firm. It was kind of coming up with innovative techniques to help children learn how to write creatively. In doing both of these activities, I've really had exposure to how social entrepreneurship can manifest itself, but particularly in a realm of kind of education through mentorship and through teaching directly.
African Leadership College really showed me how you can be an entrepreneur and educator at the same time, how these two goals can work hand in hand, rather than, I think, in a more traditional academic environment, it's believed that entrepreneurship or business is kind of working against your education goals and spreading greater knowledge or leadership cultivation in other people. My fellowship has allowed me to explore entrepreneurship in various forms and locations. And I have learned that to be a change maker in this day and age, I don't have to be following a set career path. I can be an entrepreneur and an educator, an artist and an activist, a storyteller and a facilitator all at the same time. And I think perhaps to make what I do really most impactful, I have to be wearing these multiple hats at the same time. Entrepreneurship and liberal arts is probably the most needed combination that we need in our time.
I came to Middlebury with a passion for promoting social change through art, but it's through the Social Entrepreneurship Fellowship that I really learned how to engage with other people through this passion and bring it to a much greater audience. I'm working on founding a company called SheFly, where we're making women's outdoor pants with a patent-pending zipper design so you can pee without taking your pants off, and turning my passion for art, but also my passion for empowering people who want to spend time outside and want to be able to be at the same level as everyone else has been a huge influence on making the company into a reality. Part of what the fellowship taught me is the importance of taking a step back and reflecting and realizing why you're doing the work you are, because otherwise you're going to burn out. You can't be going full steam ahead all the time if you don't take time to figure out why you're working on what you're working on.
Yeah, so I'm a powerlifter. I've been doing that for a few years. Once I got to the competitions for powerlifting, I realized there weren't people that looked like me. There were very few females. There are even fewer women of color and black women, not to mention even queer women. And there's a whole lot going on in that space. I remember that Professor Nadia said that one of the biggest projects you will ever work on is yourself. And I've really taken that to heart and integrated that into what I'm doing with the fellowship and with the funds and the support system that the fellowship provides. And I think up until this point has been a lot of exploring different options to see what makes me feel alive and what makes me feel like I'm contributing something positive and lasting and impactful to the world. And powerlifting is one of the ways that I do that. So teaching others how to be confident and strong and to embrace their authentic selves, like wholesomely, I realize that's something that it pushes me, it ignites a little ball of fire within me, and it keeps me going.
4 years at Middlebury, 3 years as a fellow. I think I'm ready. It definitely is nerve-wracking to go out into the world and trying to find your place, whatever that means. But I think, if anything, I'm no longer scared of moving to a different country and not knowing anybody, because I've done that before. I'm also no longer scared to work with huge teams of people, because I've done that before. Yeah, I'm also not really intimidated by creating my own project and coming up with my own budget and proposal and figuring out the logistics of projects, because I think I've done that before too. So it's I think wherever I go next doesn't really change the fact that I feel ready for it.